the attrition rates among young priests are still crazy today. These are great guys who are coming in with a heart for the priesthood and they're on fire. And there's some dioceses that have shared with me, like anecdotally, that they're still seeing as much as a 50% attrition rate in priests in the first 10 years of their ordination in the last several years.
This is Virtuous Leaders, the podcast for based Catholics who will speak truth, do good, or die trying. Here's the show. Tim, so you're the executive director of Amazing Parish. Tell us a little bit more about Amazing Parish.
Yeah, so we're an organization that was founded 12 years ago by two businessmen, John Martin and Pat Lencioni, basically to help parish leaders, in particular pastors, lead transformation. So our particular lens on that is helping them in their leadership to lead through a vision for culture and organizational health, which is a lot of the work our founder, Pat Lencioni, has been engaged in the corporate world. And so really what we're trying to do is just come alongside leaders, pastors in particular, who have a heart for the mission of the church, want parishes to be not just places that are sort of, we open the doors and anyone who comes can come and receive the sacraments and leave, but really places that are driving conversion and transformation, helping us to live as Jesus and the apostles lived. And so, there's a lot of different aspects of that, but that's kind of the core of the mission.
How do you do that? I'm especially curious from the organizational point of view, which is Pat's the expertise.
Yeah, so we work with, we kind of consider it a journey through 5 different phases. So we're trying to push a transformed culture, which is a culture in our view of healthy teamwork, active discipleship, and unceasing prayer through, the circles of influence, right? Our belief is kind of that transformation is not just a new program or a new initiative in the parish, but it's how we live that is more fitting for an apostolic time. And so we have a coaching relationship with a pastor, and we have a lot of events and stuff. They come to an annual summit, a pastor leadership retreat. But really the goal of it is helping him to build a healthy team, helping that team to transform the leadership of the parish, the staff, key volunteers, key councils, different things, communicate their clarity, align everything around the clarity that they've come to, and then begin to help Catholics in the pews become disciples, help those disciples go on mission to the world. So it's really about just emphasizing that concept of circle of influence and pushing transformation from the inside out, which we found helps it to be more lasting. That it's not just the vision of kind of one uniquely gifted pastor and he's kind of lone wolfing it, doing it on his own, but there's actually a sense of I'm sent to the people that are nearest to me to invite them into the transformation in Christ that we're all trying to encounter.
Okay, so to get more practical, I wonder if you could share a success story using that as a way of explaining how this works.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. So one of the beautiful things that we hear from a lot of pastors is that Amazing Parish hasn't just helped their, see transformation in their parish, but it's actually saved their priesthood, is what they'll say to us. I think the reason is a lot of parish leaders get, especially the gifted ones, right? We tend to work toward more that leading third of pastors who are really hungry for this. And so an example comes to mind of one of our really gifted pastors from an archdiocese in the Midwest, who young priest, he's an associate for a few years at a parish, then he's sent to a small kind of country parish for his first assignment as a pastor. And he comes in, the parish is super divided, the staff infighting, and he's very gifted. So he's, kind of trying to do it all on his own through his preaching, through his, efforts, but has no sort of context or imagination for how you actually drive change management organizationally throughout the entire organization. So the first thing we do is we build a leadership team with them. And that leadership team learns to actually live, vulnerability-based trust, which helps them have healthy conflict, helps them to actually commit to results, which is atypical in parishes, we're just sort of, and then helps them hold each other accountable to those results so they can actually see them in the parish over the time. That leadership team takes on collective accountability for the results of the entire parish. And then they really go about and transform the culture of the staff, right? And the key leaders in the parish. They find a lot of, for some people that's disruptive and it's something that they choose to leave, maybe staff over. For others, they really buy in and they buy into this new vision. And then they, in collaboration with some other key ministries, went and actually really tried to, reach the Catholics in the pews, with a particular lens for them on marriage and the family and how to actually form healthy marriages and healthy families in the parish. And their parish grew 300% through COVID. Wow. So as every parish is declining and mass attendance is down 20%, they were up 300%. But it's because they didn't just start with that marriage and family initiative from the jump. they like worked to actually create the kind of organizational culture that could sustain fruitfulness over time. So we hear those kind of stories all the time.
And how did that change how the priest uses his time?
Yeah, that's a lot of it for us. Is a lot of priests typically where they experience the most overwhelm and burnout in their vocation is the unending, sort of unrelenting demands of like the management or CEO side of their job. So in a lot of ways, it's about trying to help them delegate effectively and lead effectively, like sort of really live into that CEO role, which is, visionary leader, setting the tone, setting the agenda, teaching them the things one of our models is the things only a leader can do. Teaching them to focus as much of their time as possible on those things instead of, getting kind of lost in the administrivia of the parish or, everyone saying, well, this is what father wants or only father can make that decision. Like we're trying to actually teach them to lead more in that kind of CEO model with a lens for, right. It's not totally corporate. It's not just like we're trying to teach every parish to be a startup. We're trying to teach pastors to really lead. The problem that we're trying to address, right, is we're in a recessionary climate in some ways in the Church of the United States. We're seeing incredible growth in the last few years, but we're still not like relative to our infrastructural footprint in the Church of the United States. We don't have enough priests to actually staff all of these, locations that we have. So when you used to have 5, 6 priests in a parish in an urban setting who are ministering to the parish, now you have one who has 3 parishes. And so we have to find a way to, help pastors lead in that. The attrition rates among young priests are still crazy today. These are great guys who are coming in with a heart for the priesthood and they're on fire. And there's some dioceses that have shared with me, like anecdotally, that they're still seeing as much as a 50% attrition rate in priests in the first 10 years of their ordination in the last several years. It's a huge problem that we're not really talking about enough.
You,
And that
you mean priests leaving the priesthood?
priests leaving the priesthood completely.
Oh, wow. That's really sad.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to help address is nothing's going to change dramatically in the structural reality of the church over the next 20 years. So we have to help pastors actually live in that reality in a way that's not just burning them out, over that period of time.
By the way, did you just use the word administrivia?
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. So what you're saying sounds pretty common sense. Why doesn't every parish just do this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's hard, right? Like it's hard to actually lead, right? To make the decision to lead. And I think us as men in particular, we want to say like, I got it. I know what I'm doing, right? And priests go to 9 years of seminary. And so they're like, I know what it means to be a priest. I know how to do this. And I think we tend toward sort of Lone Ranger instincts. And so I'd say most of like we have a 99% retention rate for our clients, right? Like once they start doing it, they're like, holy cow, I can't believe I didn't find this first. But doing a new thing is harder. There's resistances around like some of these ideas are from the corporate world, quote unquote, the world of organizational health, like how does that work in a Catholic setting? The objections vary, but we do find it's overwhelmingly helpful to priests.
So what is your current growth trajectory?
Yeah, so we in terms of we do a few different things, right? We have an event and a conference, and we expect that to grow quite a bit this year, probably by almost 100%. Coaching has grown dramatically this year. I've only been there a year, so we're seeing a lot of growth this year for sure. And we're adding like one pastor a week right now into coaching. So we're trying to hire coaches to keep up with sort of the demand that's out there. So I don't know where that all goes. I think at a certain point you hit probably a critical mass of, we really see our key audience in a particular way as the innovators and early adopters. What is that Bell's innovation curve where they talk about, 3% of people by temperament are innovators, 14% by temperament early adopters for new ways of doing things. And this is a new way of doing things still in the church, even though we've been around 12 years. So, I think that's, in the United States, we have about 17,000 parishes. That's like 2,800 pastors is really who we're trying to reach with this. And so we hope to reach all those pastors in the next decade, but, time and God will tell.
What would you say is your biggest challenge at this point?
I think the realities of the church are still like there's a lot of things about the fruitfulness of our initiative, of our work that we can't control to some degree. Like we can't control how pastor assignments are done in the church still. And a lot of dioceses are still caught trying to plug holes. And so they're shuffling priests around to just try to like man. We're almost like, are you a Lord of the Rings fan at all?
Yeah.
So the Pelennor Fields, right? Like there's the outer wall that Gondor retreats from in order to just defend Minas Tirith. And as a church, sometimes we're still trying to man the outer wall to a degree. Like we're trying to plug every hole instead of realizing that there is probably some like retreat for the sake of the health of our diocese that is required. And so that we get caught in that dynamic as well too, where it's like we'll have been making incredible progress with a parish, and then that pastor gets moved in 3 years. And then hopefully, often what's kind of amazing is a lot of those pastors will continue in coaching, like the new pastor at that parish, because they want to continue. They see the progress, the momentum. But yeah, there's a lot of, there's some things that we just can't control in our context. And so we have to just entrust those things to God to a degree.
So if someone's listening to this and they want this program to start at their parish, what should they do?
Contact us on our website, amazingparish.org. If you're a lay person, like really who we're going to want to talk to is the pastor at the end of the day, because if he's not bought in and if he doesn't want it, like it's just not going to work. But you could recommend it to him. You could help support him with a scholarship to do this. There's like a kind of a marginal cost to do some of it. There's a lot of things that you could do to support your pastor in getting this work if you just get in touch with us through amazingparish.org.
Anything else you want to share with us, Tim?
No, that's good. I mean, that's good as far as Amazing Parish. I mean, I think this is, there's a broader conversation on the renewal of the church, restoring all things in Christ. That's like a, kind of paramount in this time. And so I have a million thoughts on all those different things. But for our oar to row in that work of renewal, which is really focusing on the healthy and effective leaders and helping them get the help and the accountability and the accompaniment that they need to do that. I think that's a good overview.
Okay, well, you kind of left there on a cliffhanger. So why don't you give us a nugget there? What's your nugget of renewing all things in Christ?
Oh, I just think that's like the kind of perennial mission in front of the church right now is really the church exists so that more and more people can encounter the life and life to the full that can only be found in Jesus. We're seeing an incredible upsurge today in people who are asking those questions and open to the answers that Catholicism provides. But the project of renewal and reform in the church is always about how do the means of the church, like everything we do as leaders in the church, how do they more adequately lend themselves to that end, that mission of the church? And so I just think, like in some ways, to me, that's the most important conversation happening in the church today is like, how do we do that more frequently? And that requires change and conversion, personal conversion and institutional conversion. And so, yeah, I see Amazing Parish as located within that broader project, which I think is sort of like, in some ways that work of revival, the most important conversation in the church today.
Keep up the great work, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. See you next time.